Hey, welcome to Friday night's video and our Master Series. Tonight we are going to talk a little bit about getting prepared and getting ready for the production. This may sound very simplistic and very obvious, but it's a really good idea. If I look at it as you are the composer, the band, and the engineer, that I'm basically saying, get all your material as organized, cleaned up as possible, and completely prepared. Get yourself mentally and physically prepared and ready for the production. Know exactly what you're going to do when you go in. You're going to be at 9 o'clock, when till 5 o'clock, what you're going to try to be getting done, and as prepared and ready for it as possible. And your studio, the equipment is ready and as prepared as possible. The instruments is ready and prepared as possible. Everything. The engineer is ready and prepared as possible. Everybody on the same wavelength and know what they're doing from 9 to 5, what you're trying to get done, and everybody's ready and prepared as possible. That may seem like a very simplistic, obvious step, but if you incorporate that into your production procedure, that it will save you lots of headaches by getting better prepared and readying yourself and everybody involved in the production and making sure they are ready and prepared so that you save yourself a lot of frustration, headaches, problems, and things like that. So with that being said, that you really need to look at your production, your place in the production, where what you're going to be doing in the production, and make yourself ready and prepared, and taking steps beyond that, trying to help the others get themselves ready and prepared for what the production is going to be and what you're going to be doing when you get into the studio. And like I said, that may seem very simple and obvious, but if you incorporate it as a step in your production procedures, it will help alleviate a lot of confusion, disorganization, messes, frustrations, and all kinds of things that you can run into enough problems sometimes on a production as things change, or you get different ideas, or you have problems or anything like that, that make to you being as prepared and ready as possible can alleviate some of that stress so that you're not adding to it. So make it part of your production, and make it part of your production phase, a phase of your production, and incorporate it in there and really think about it, and get and do it. And just because it will help you immensely and help everybody around you, with the production. And psychologically, it will help you you'll be much more comfortable when you go into to do the production. You'll perform better, you will do your job better, and it will show to everybody, and it will affect everybody else in your production and help them to be more supportive of you, or get a positive vibe going with less frustration and less issues. So really take that into consideration. So with that being said, we're ready to start. So what we're going to do, we are going to do this a couple different ways. First of all, we're going to go through a checklist, just like NASA in my notebook, that's going to go through what we're going to do. We're going to say the recording phase. We start here, we end here, we're done with the recording phase. We've gone through the checklist, okay, and it's done. So then we're going to pull out the DAW, and we're going to record something, so that we've got a book, basically academic book kind of environment, to where we're going through a checklist, what you should do, things you should take into consideration and look at, and then we're going to go through and actually record something visually so that you can actually see it being recorded and do a good job of it, and then we'll call that phase done, and we'll move on to the next phase. So it's going to make the series a little bit long, but I've learned that some people, that with doing it that way, that especially with something like this, that a production can be complicated enough that it may be redundant sometimes, and it may be a little overkill, but you are basically getting it visually as far as looking at a book, and you're getting a good example of it happening, so that it really sinks in the concepts and the ideas and the checklist you may be going through to accomplish a good production or a certain phase of a production. So you just kind of have to bear with me on that. And I think by the time the series gets done, that should really sink in really well, so that you can really start refining how you go about doing a production and your notebooks and your processes and things like that, to doing a good job and helping you to refine it for what you're trying to do in music production. So with that being said, again, I hope you enjoyed this series so far. I certainly hope you took the things we took into consideration. The first video, we kind of walked through an introduction. Then we talked about understanding your equipment, your processors, the audio engineering concepts. Then in the next video, we talked about your environment and taking that in consideration. Then we talked about your organization and your cleanliness, your positive attitude and trying to inject positivity. And we talked about creating a positive environment, and a comfortable environment to do your production in for yourself and the people you may be working with. So if you've taken all that in consideration and you've watched this video, then you just get yourself prepared and get yourself ready, and we're going to go ahead and start the series. Now, I know all these things we talked about, and even as we go through this series, some of these things may be a work in progress for you, that you're going to get better at doing them and better at doing them and better at doing them as you practice, as you get better at doing things. But it's as you do it that everything we talk about, you'll start to refine, and as you get better doing it, you will see things and you will start to understand why certain things are happening, and it'll make you think about maybe doing things a little bit differently for the way you see things, or for your environment, or for your certain type of production, or how you like things to sound, and what's a good production in the end to you, whereas David or Bob might have done it just a little bit differently than you. Does that make sense? Because you're a unique individual, like a snowflake. So anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the series so far, and I suggest you get yourself ready, because next week we are going to get into recording. And I suggest you get ready by getting yourself some notebooks, either some pens and papers and pads of paper, or something like OneNote or Evernote or something like that, and start working on putting yourself your own notebook together for your procedures, so that you can start refining them as you practice and as you work through the processes of doing a production. So peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next week when we pull out the notebook and start going through the first phase of a music production with recording.